It suddenly hit me. I think I understood what it was, and somehow through him, we had this extraordinary collaboration, mostly in a sense very, very collaborative and almost to the point where we didn't necessarily have to talk.
Martin Scorsese is one of the most famous directors in movie history, known for his unique style and high standards. But not every actor has been easy for him to work with. In fact, there are some actors he really didn't get along with, or just didn't like working with. Let's get into the video and see the top 7 actors Martin Scorsese hated the most. 7. Tom Cruise. In the mid-1980s, Tom Cruise was a rising star, fresh off the sleek swagger of Top Gun and the teen bravado of Risky Business. His ascent in Hollywood was meteoric, his image meticulously sculpted, his performances increasingly dialed in for charisma and control. So when Cruise signed on to co-star in The Color of Money, a spiritual sequel to The Hustler, he was stepping into a cinematic arena entirely different from the glossy, crowd-pleasing roles that had launched him to fame. At the helm was Martin Scorsese, a director known for his raw energy, improvisational looseness, and a deep distrust of surface-level charm. The film was supposed to be a character study, Paul Newman's fast Eddie Felson passing the torch to Cruise's cocky young protege, Vincent Lauria. But behind the scenes, it quickly became a power struggle between an actor obsessed with control and a director allergic to it. Scorsese's vision for The Color of Money wasn't about stylish victories or big payoffs. It was about decay, disappointment, and the illusions of youth. He wanted Cruise to unravel on screen, to let go of his polish, embrace the messiness, and surrender to the vulnerability of a character who doesn't understand how little he truly knows. But Cruise, just 24 at the time, wasn't ready or willing to dismantle his rising star identity for the sake of artistic chaos. One of the earliest points of tension was Scorsese's approach to blocking and camera work. Known for his frenetic, often handheld style, Scorsese shot pool games like boxing matches, darting in, spinning around the table, catching glances and grit rather than clean geometry. Cruise, who had spent weeks learning actual pool techniques with obsessive discipline, was frustrated that the camera wasn't focused on showcasing his skill. He reportedly lobbied for more wide shots that captured his real pool shots, an attempt to validate the work he'd put into the physicality of the role, but Scorsese wasn't interested in Cruise's technical precision. For him, pool was a metaphor, not a talent show. The point wasn't to prove Vincent was good at the game, it was to reveal how hollow his victories were. The tighter Cruise tried to control his image, the more Scorsese tried to strip it away. Offset, the dynamic grew tense. Cruise came from a school of discipline, precision, and star brand management. Scorsese worked in instinct, improvisation, and spiritual decay. Their worldviews clashed in real time. Scorsese encouraged Cruise to break from the script, to lose himself in the scene, to stop thinking like Tom Cruise. But Cruise wasn't comfortable with that level of spontaneity. He valued preparation over surrender, execution over chaos. Scorsese, frustrated by what he saw as emotional rigidity, reportedly began reshaping the film in post-production to draw more focus toward Newman's arc, using editing to dampen Cruise's screen dominance. The film that emerged was brilliant but emotionally asymmetrical. Cruise delivered a performance filled with energy and charm, but it was Paul Newman who held the soul of the movie. The torch wasn't passed so much as held tightly by a veteran who still had something to prove. Though the film was a critical and commercial success, the experience left a scar. Cruise didn't work with Scorsese again. He pivoted toward directors like Tony Scott, Ron Howard, and Stanley Kubrick, filmmakers who either embraced his precision or challenged it through deeper psychological terrain. But even in those later collaborations, there was always a lingering echo of that early tension. the struggle between control and collapse, between image and essence. Scorsese, for his part, rarely spoke about Cruise publicly after The Color of Money. In interviews, he praised Newman's performance and the film's visual style, but he avoided commentary on Cruise's contribution. Insiders close to the production noted that Scorsese had found the process draining, and that Cruise's insistence on controlling his image conflicted with the director's desire for emotional exposure. Over time, the Cruise-Scorsese clash became one of those semi-whispered Hollywood legends, an example of two titanic forces meeting at the wrong moment in their trajectories. Cruise, still in the process of building his brand, was unwilling to jeopardize it for the sake of artistic messiness. Scorsese, still shaking off the commercial failures of the late 70s and early 80s, wasn't about to compromise his integrity for the sake of a rising heartthrob. 6. Winona Ryder. In the early 1990s, Winona Ryder was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. She had a special kind of presence, soft, mysterious, and strong at the same time. Directors loved her because she brought both emotion and intelligence to every role. So when Martin Scorsese began working on The Age of Innocence, a slow and emotional drama based on Edith Wharton's novel, casting Winona seemed like a smart choice. Scorsese was trying something very different from his usual style. He was best known for violent, fast-talking movies like Goodfellas and Taxi Driver. But The Age of Innocence was a quiet, detailed story about love, lies, and social rules in 1870s New York. Every look, every gesture, every small pause in conversation meant something. Scorsese wanted actors who could show deep emotions without big actions and who could fully live inside the strict world of that time. Winona was cast as May Welland, the sweet young woman engaged to the main character, Newland Archer. At first glance, May seemed innocent and kind, but underneath, the character was clever, maybe even manipulative. She wasn't just a quiet bride. She knew how to use silence and tradition to get what she wanted. That complexity is what made the character so important to the story. But this is where the problem started. Winona had her own thoughts about May. She believed the character had more vulnerability, more heart than Scorsese saw. She wanted to show May as someone who was also hurt, not just someone playing a quiet game of control. Scorsese disagreed. He thought May's strength came from her ability to hide her feelings and play by society's rules. He needed Winona to hold back, to let the coldness of the world come through her performance. The tension between them grew as filming went on. During the famous engagement scene at the van der Luydens mansion, things got especially difficult. Scorsese reportedly stopped filming for 6 hours, trying to get a very specific emotion out of Winona. He whispered to her between takes for long stretches of time, explaining the character again and again. Crew members said she would come back to set with red, tired eyes, only to hear that the take still wasn't right. Scorsese was known for his perfectionism, but in this case, it created a very stressful atmosphere. Production designer Dante Ferretti later said the entire crew could feel the pressure building. Every scene with May required extra time, and the emotional toll was clearly affecting both director and actor. One of the most painful scenes to film was the moment where May reveals her pregnancy to Newland. It's a quiet moment, but it changes everything in the story. Scorsese wanted it to be played with calm confidence, like May knew exactly what she was doing and why. But Winona leaned into the sadness of it. She saw it as a moment where May was scared, not strong. Again, their visions clashed. Behind the camera, things weren't any easier. Script supervisor Martha Pinson said in an interview that Winona was trying to find the character's humanity. Something soft, something relatable. Scorsese, on the other hand, believed that May had power exactly because she didn't show her vulnerability. This disagreement made every scene more difficult to shoot. Even though the final film was beautiful and Ryder earned an Oscar nomination for her performance, she was left out of most of the film's promotions. She didn't appear on the commentary track. She didn't show up for many interviews. And after that movie, Scorsese never cast her again. Years later, when asked about Winona, Scorsese simply said that she was brilliant at certain things, but not what May Welland required. He explained that sometimes working with a great actor can still be exhausting if your creative styles don't match. In his words, even if the result is good on screen, the experience can be too hard to repeat. 5. James Caan. James Caan was known in Hollywood as a real tough guy, on screen and off. Best known for his role as Sonny Corleone in The Godfather, Caan brought a kind of raw energy to his roles that made him unforgettable. He was loud, bold, and didn't hold back. Directors loved him when they needed that edge. But Martin Scorsese, a man with his own strong vision, didn't love it so much when it clashed with his style. Their paths crossed during the early planning stages of Mean Streets, one of Scorsese's earliest and most personal films. Set in New York's Little Italy, it was based on people and stories Scorsese had grown up with. He wanted actors who understood that world from the inside, not just as performers, but as people. Scorsese's approach was raw and realistic. He wasn't interested in big movie star energy. He wanted something quieter, darker, and more natural. At the time, James Caan was at the top of his game. After The Godfather, he was getting offers left and right, and his name alone could sell a film. Scorsese's team briefly considered him for a leading role in Mean Streets, possibly even for the character that eventually went to Harvey Keitel. But it didn't take long for things to go sideways. Caan was known for having a big personality. He brought that same energy into meetings with directors. When he sat down with Scorsese to talk about Mean Streets, their conversation quickly became tense. Caan reportedly didn't connect with the script's slow pacing or the focus on guilt, Catholicism, and inner conflict. He wanted more action, more punch, more fire. Scorsese, on the other hand, was looking for truth, not drama. He was crafting scenes based on how real people talked in diners, how they made small decisions that ruined their lives. He didn't want the performance to overpower the mood. Caan didn't understand why the characters didn't do more, say more, fight more. He wanted the film to move faster and feel more like a crime thriller. Scorsese wanted a quiet, slow burn. The two men couldn't find common ground. Caan reportedly suggested making changes to the script to give his character more dominance in scenes, more opportunities to shine. But that went against everything Scorsese believed in. He didn't want one star to steal the spotlight. He wanted his characters to blend, to feel like real guys from the block. Caan's comments rubbed Scorsese the wrong way. In private, Scorsese later told close collaborators that Caan didn't get it. He felt Caan was still thinking in terms of traditional Hollywood structure, while Mean Streets was about authenticity, the rhythm of real life, not the punch of a movie plot. What made things worse was Caan's casual attitude toward preparation. Scorsese was a perfectionist, often asking for multiple takes, endless rewrites, and deep emotional work from his actors. Caan had no interest in that kind of process. He liked to be spontaneous, to trust his instincts. That style worked well with some directors, but not with Scorsese, who saw film as a craft that demanded careful control. After their meeting, Caan's name was quietly dropped from the project. No big fallout, no public drama. But behind the scenes, it was clear. Scorsese didn't want to work with someone who challenged his control over the material. And Caan wasn't going to change his way of working for anyone, not even for one of the most talented directors in the game. The film went ahead without him, with Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro leading the cast. Mean Streets went on to become a critical success, launching both Scorsese's and De Niro's careers into the stratosphere. And while Caan continued making great movies, he was never considered again for a Scorsese project. Over the years, the story became an example of how two big talents can still be a terrible match. It wasn't about who was better. Caan was a great actor in his own right, but Scorsese needed actors who fit his method, not ones who wanted to reshape the material. He didn't want stars who tried to rewrite scenes on set or question the script's tone. 4. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is known for his wild energy, stretchy face, and over-the-top performances. He made millions laugh in movies like Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. But underneath all that craziness, Carrey has always been someone who takes acting seriously. He's not just a comedian, he's a performer who dives deep into his roles. That's why it was such a big deal when people found out that Carrey once tried to work with one of the most serious directors in the business. Martin Scorsese. Scorsese, famous for movies like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Goodfellas, is a director who doesn't do silly things. His films are heavy, slow-burning, and full of dark emotions. He works with actors who can go deep into messy, painful characters. So when Jim Carrey tried to step into that world, many were curious, but also confused. It happened in the late 1990s, around the time Carrey was trying to change his image. He had already proven he could do more than comedy by starring in The Truman Show and later Man on the Moon. He was looking for serious work. One project that caught his interest was an early version of The Aviator, Scorsese's big biopic about Howard Hughes. At first, it sounded like an exciting match. Carrey was fascinated by the role of Hughes, a rich and famous man who slowly lost his mind. It was exactly the kind of challenge Carrey wanted, something that would show the world he wasn't just a rubber-faced clown. For a while, it seemed like the movie might happen with him as the lead. He even started doing research and testing makeup looks for different stages of Hughes's life. But things didn't go smoothly. Scorsese's way of working didn't match Carrey's style. Scorsese is all about control. He plans his films down to the smallest detail, and he needs his actors to fit into that plan. Carrey, on the other hand, is unpredictable. He brings a lot of his own ideas into the room. He likes to move fast, explore wild emotions, and find the performance as he goes. From early talks, it became clear they were not seeing eye to eye. Scorsese found Carrey's ideas too big and too loud for the kind of movie he wanted to make. He needed someone who could disappear into the role of Hughes, someone who could be quiet, fragile, and haunted. Carrey could certainly do intense, but subtle wasn't really his thing at that time. Carrey, for his part, was frustrated. He didn't want to just follow instructions, he wanted to create something new. He had his own vision for Howard Hughes, and it didn't match Scorsese's slow, tightly controlled storytelling. The tension grew, and neither of them was willing to change. Eventually, the project shifted. Scorsese put the idea aside for a while, and later came back to it with Leonardo DiCaprio in the lead. That version of The Aviator became a major hit, earning praise and multiple awards. DiCaprio gave the kind of performance Scorsese wanted. Carefully constructed, emotionally distant, and grounded in historical realism. Carrey moved on, too. He continued to take risks with roles, especially in films like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and The Number 23. But he never ended up working with Scorsese, or with any director quite as controlled and detail-obsessed. In the years after, Carrey quietly hinted in interviews that some of his more serious attempts had been rejected by directors who didn't trust him. He never named Scorsese, but fans and film insiders have long connected the dots. This story became a reminder of how different acting styles can make or break a collaboration. Just because two people are brilliant doesn't mean they belong on the same project. Scorsese's films are about stillness, shadows, and emotional weight. Carrey brings light, speed, and surprise. They were never meant to blend. Third, Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts, often called America's sweetheart, is one of the most recognizable and beloved movie stars of the past few decades. With her bright smile, natural charm, and confident energy, she became a household name thanks to roles in films like Pretty Woman, My Best Friend's Wedding, and Erin Brockovich. But there was one film where things didn't go as planned. The Age of Innocence, directed by Martin Scorsese. Scorsese, famous for his intense dramas and deep historical films, had a very specific vision for The Age of Innocence, a romantic period piece set in 1870s New York. It was full of strict rules, social pressure, and quiet emotional suffering. He was looking for actors who could fully step into that world, who could almost forget they were modern people. At one point during pre-production, Scorsese considered casting Julia Roberts for the role of Countess Ellen Olenska, a mysterious and independent woman who becomes the center of a love triangle. Roberts was already a major star by then, and her name brought excitement and attention. On paper, she could have brought something special to the character. But as soon as the process started, it became clear that she and Scorsese had very different ways of working. For starters, Scorsese is a perfectionist. When he makes a period film, he wants every detail to be exactly right, from the furniture to the food to the way the actors move and speak. He believes that discomfort and realism help the actor become the character. That's why, during a costume fitting, Roberts was asked to wear a tightly laced corset, just like women of that era did. But she found it extremely difficult. She asked questions, trying to understand why it was necessary to feel that much discomfort just for a role. This raised a red flag for Scorsese. He saw the corset not just as clothing, but as a tool for understanding the character's life. If an actor couldn't tolerate it or didn't believe in its purpose, it meant they might not be able to fully disappear into the time period. Roberts, on the other hand, had a more intuitive style. She believed in feeling the emotions naturally, not forcing them by suffering physically. As pre-production continued, more differences appeared. During character discussions, Roberts reportedly pushed back on certain historical details. She wanted to bring her own interpretation to the role. She had modern instincts, strong, independent, confident, which clashed with Scorsese's desire for subtle, quiet sorrow. The Countess was supposed to be a woman trapped by society, worn down by years of isolation. Roberts was bringing too much fire and not enough stillness. Eventually, after a particularly tense meeting about the character's background and motivations, Roberts stepped away from the project. There was no dramatic fight, no public falling out, just a quiet decision that they weren't the right match for each other. The role eventually went to Michelle Pfeiffer, who brought the kind of soft, tragic elegance that Scorsese was looking for. While the public never got to see Roberts in The Age of Innocence, the story of her near casting became well known in Hollywood circles. It was seen as a classic example of what happens when two big talents, both successful in their own ways, just don't click creatively. Scorsese later admitted in interviews that Roberts had a certain glow that could have worked. But, he said, she also had a modern energy that couldn't be hidden. She always seemed like she belonged in the here and now, not in a ballroom from 1870. Roberts herself has never spoken in detail about the situation. In a roundtable years later, she mentioned an unnamed director who wanted her to not breathe properly for the sake of a role, a clear reference to the corset and Scorsese. She laughed about it, calling it method directing. It was clear she didn't hold a grudge, but it also showed how far apart their methods were. The whole incident is a reminder that not every actor is right for every director. Roberts shines in roles where she can use her modern voice, her strength, and her emotional honesty. Scorsese needs actors who can blend into another time and place, who can live inside the quiet rules of the past. Neither one is wrong. They just have different ways of making art. Second, Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg and Martin Scorsese may have ended up making movie magic together in The Departed, but their working relationship almost never got off the ground. Back in the early 2000s, Wahlberg was still shaking off his Marky Mark image. Yes, he'd already done a few serious films like Boogie Nights and Three Kings, but people still saw him as the shirtless rapper with abs from the 90s. So when Scorsese was casting for The Departed, Wahlberg wasn't exactly his first choice. The film had already attracted a powerhouse cast, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, and Scorsese was being very specific about who would play each role. Wahlberg wanted to be part of the movie. He read the script and was drawn to the sharp-tongued, aggressive cop named Dignam. It was a small role, but one filled with attitude. Loud, angry, and brutally honest. Wahlberg believed he could nail it. But when his team approached Scorsese about the part, the response was less than excited. Scorsese didn't see Wahlberg as a perfect match. In fact, some reports say Scorsese had no interest in meeting him at all. He felt Wahlberg might not be the right fit for the kind of movie he was trying to make. Wahlberg had a strong personality, and Scorsese had heard about his rougher, more intense attitude behind the scenes. It wasn't exactly encouraging. Still, Wahlberg pushed for the meeting. He wanted the role, and he didn't care if he had to walk into an uncomfortable room to fight for it. When the meeting finally happened, things got awkward almost instantly. Wahlberg came in with energy and opinions. He had ideas about the role and wasn't shy about sharing them. But Scorsese, known for being thoughtful and deeply focused, didn't appreciate Wahlberg's pushy tone. According to insiders, the conversation didn't go well. Wahlberg spoke his mind. Scorsese stayed quiet, unimpressed. The two didn't click. Wahlberg later said that he walked out of the meeting thinking he'd blown it. He figured he'd never hear back. And for a while, he was right. The role almost went to someone else. Rumors floated around that Ray Liotta, another actor with a Scorsese history, was in talks. Wahlberg was all but out of the picture. But something shifted. Scorsese, despite the rocky meeting, couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Wahlberg's brash, aggressive personality was exactly what the role needed. The character wasn't supposed to be likable or polished. He was supposed to be intense, irritating, and unpredictable. In other words, Wahlberg might have accidentally proved he was perfect for it by simply being himself in that uncomfortable meeting. So Wahlberg got the call. He landed the role of Dignam, and when filming began, he came in swinging. On set, he didn't try to fit into the polished Hollywood mold. He improvised lines, brought his natural edge, and gave the character a rough energy that stood out, even among a cast of A-listers. He wasn't on screen for long, but every time he appeared, he stole the scene. The result? Wahlberg's performance in The Departed earned him his very first Oscar nomination. It was a huge moment, not just for his career, but for proving that even the most uncomfortable meetings can lead to something great. Still, even after the film's success, Wahlberg and Scorsese didn't become best friends. Wahlberg has openly said they didn't speak much during filming. He came in, did his job, and left. Scorsese never asked him to come back for another film. It was a one-time collaboration, messy, tense, but effective. 1. Ryan O'Neal. Ryan O'Neal was one of Hollywood's biggest heartthrobs in the 1970s. With leading roles in films like Love Story, Paper Moon, and Barry Lyndon, he had the classic movie star look and a smooth charm that made audiences fall in love. He was known for his romantic energy, easy presence, and box office power. But there was one director whose world he couldn't quite step into: Martin Scorsese's. Meanwhile, Scorsese was preparing to direct Raging Bull, a raw, emotional story based on the life of real boxer Jake LaMotta. It was a violent, intense film about obsession, rage, and destruction, both inside the boxing ring and outside of it. The character of Jake wasn't meant to be likable or charming. He was supposed to be difficult, angry, and self-destructive. Before Robert De Niro officially got the role, a few other actors were considered. One of them was Ryan O'Neal. On paper, it made sense. O'Neal was famous, talented, and already had experience with big, demanding roles. But once the two met, it quickly became clear that they weren't on the same page. O'Neal came to the meeting with a very different view of the film. He reportedly thought the character could be softened a little, maybe made more sympathetic, more understandable to audiences. He believed that viewers needed someone to root for, someone they could care about. He wanted to bring some humanity to LaMotta, to show that even tough guys have hearts. But Scorsese didn't want that. He wasn't trying to make a feel-good story. He wanted to show LaMotta exactly as he was: flawed, broken, and sometimes even cruel. He believed the point of the movie was honesty, not comfort. For Scorsese, the character didn't need to be saved. He needed to be revealed. People who were close to the project later described the meeting as extremely uncomfortable. O'Neal didn't understand why the film had to be so dark. He didn't connect with the angry tone or the violent scenes. When he suggested changing parts of the script to make LaMotta seem less aggressive, Scorsese reportedly shut down the conversation. This wasn't a typical audition. It was more like two people from completely different movie worlds trying and failing to meet in the middle. O'Neal came from the classic Hollywood system where actors were supposed to be likable. Scorsese was part of the new Hollywood wave, where characters could be messy, damaged, or even hated. To him, that was more real and more interesting. After the meeting, nothing more happened. O'Neal was quietly removed from the running, and the role soon went to Robert De Niro, who fully embraced the dark side of the character. De Niro trained as a boxer, gained a huge amount of weight for the later scenes, and didn't try to soften Jake LaMotta at all. His performance would go on to win an Oscar and be remembered as one of the greatest in film history. O'Neal never spoke in detail about the meeting, but he did make a few vague comments years later about directors who want ugliness and how he always believed in giving audiences a reason to care. It was a clear sign that he and Scorsese had very different views about what movies should do. It's clear that Scorsese's intense vision and high standards don't always mesh well with every actor, no matter how famous or talented they are. Sometimes that clash leads to unforgettable performances, and other times it just ends in tension and disappointment. Do you think these actors were really at fault? Or was it just the pressure and style of working with a director like Scorsese? Let us know your thoughts.